Right, so what I was asked to do last week really is just have a look at the way I process an image into, the workflow that I particularly use. Now, all my work goes through Lightroom and I finish off in Photoshop. I also know that there's quite a number of people here tonight that are using Photoshop or other software, and I know that we've got some experts. So like Mike, for instance, I know he's pretty well into his Lightroom. Some people use Photoshop. So all I'm trying to say is that from my point of view, this is the system that I would use to process an image. So we'll start with this one. I've got two images tonight. This particular one, you'll all know it. It's Gibson Mill, taken last week actually in Hardcastle Crags. And there's another image that I took yesterday on the Rochdale Canal in Ancoats, which I want to look at. This particular one, I'm going to sort of focus on masks, masking techniques, and the other one, I want to look at transposition in Lightroom. I can then go into Photoshop and look at the way I produce one or two of you probably know that I'm quite interested in prints. I do 16 by 12 prints, put text on them, and I've got quite a collection of prints that I do each year. So if we get onto this one to start with, all that's happened with this is that the image has been brought into Lightroom. I sent a copy of this file to David and he's put it on his Lightroom system. So once it's into Lightroom in Library, we can then go into the develop mode. Now, the first thing I'll do with an image like this is say to myself, well, how can I improve it? So you tell me, how do you think I could improve the image just looking at it? Don't forget, this is a raw image. What do you think you would need to do? Well, first of all, the sky, yeah. The autumn colour in the trees. There's quite a bit of autumn colour still left in the trees last week. And there's quite a bit of autumn colour in the water that you can't see because it's a raw file. I'd also think about wanting to crop it. So the first thing I'd do is probably frowned upon by some people, but you'll see that there's an auto button here. So I always start off by clicking on auto, and it gives me a good starting point. If you look at the sliders here, the exposure's gone up by 0.2, so it's virtually correct exposure. Contrast is up by 7. Highlights have been reduced. I won't go through them all, but you can see these changes have already been made by Lightroom, which from my point of view gives me a good starting point. What I do is I just check the whites. And if you press on a Mac, if you press Option and look at your whites, by moving your white slider, you can see anything that's white on here will print white on the printed sheet. So I try to just get a little bit of white showing. So I know that I've got a complete tonal range. I'm not clipping at all by using that method. If I go with the shadows, sorry, the black, well, it's the blacks. I normally go for about 10%. Anything, I don't mind, for instance, 5 to 10% of my image printing completely black. So that gives me a good idea that I've got my blacks set. So effectively, the only thing I've done is I've started with the auto. I've got the whites that are not clipping apart from a little bit in the sky, and my blacks are showing about 5%. Okay. If anybody's got any questions, please dive in, because it's, as I say, this is my approach. I'm not suggesting it's the only way, but it works for me. So let's have a look at the sky. Now, if you go up into this area here, you've got this icon here is actually giving you filters. So if you click on that, you've got sky. So what if I click now, Lightroom will actually identify the sky. So it's given me a mask of the sky. Now, I'm not going to go into, one of the problems with Lightroom is that there are areas in the sky where it goes over the trees. There's little bits, and if you overdo it, it does actually start affecting other parts of the image. And there are ways around that, whereby you make two masks, which I don't want to get into that now, but you can do. You know, it's worth knowing about if you have trouble with skies. So what I'm going to do here now on the sky, I'm going to reduce the exposure till I start seeing a little bit of sky creeping in. You can see it here. But I also find that if you change the color temperature of the sky, you bring in the blue back into the sky. If there's clouds in the sky, what I also do is if you look at, I can just find it, slightly different than mine. Yeah, we go. Effects. If you increase the clarity in the sky, you'll also bring detail up into your clouds. You can't really see it in this image, but so the three areas that I look at in sky is the exposure, color temperature to bring some blue back into the sky, and also clarity if there's clouds there. If there's no clouds, like in this image, I wouldn't worry with clarity, but it's certainly worth knowing. So the three areas I look at in sky is exposure, color temperature, and clarity. Okay. I'll come back to the sky in a moment. I also really want to think about the color in the trees here. Now, I can go use a mask for that, which I probably will do in a moment. But there is a color mixer tab here. And if I go into saturation, in these areas, it's orange and yellows. So if I increase the saturation in those, this is an overall saturation. You can see it's bringing the color up in the oranges and the yellows. I can also go into luminance, which again, I can actually increase the brightness, if you like, of the orange and the brightness of the yellows in those areas. So immediately you've started to get some more color. But the thing is with this, it's actually an overall effect. So any orange in there will also affect any orange in here. So if I want to emphasize, if I want to just focus on this area, I can go back into masks. And if I create a new mask, this time calling it a radial gradient, I'll put a gradient over this area here. What we've got here, right in the center of the gradient, is going to be affected by the movements I make in these. And then it'll fade out, so you won't see it. You can change that by, this is sort of, most of the detail will be in this area, and it'll fade out as you come out of the gradient towards the gradient. So in this one, let's say we want to just perhaps increase the brightness, and I don't think you do actually. Increase the color temperature. So you can actually increase the color temperature of the trees, but it's a matter of taste, really. Okay. So if you like, these trees have been controlled by the overall gradient, the overall saturation, and also localized saturation. If I now do another mask, and we'll call this a radial gradient again, I want to try and replicate these colors in the water now. So if I do a radial gradient here, and this time, because the water is pretty dark, I'm going to increase exposure slightly. I can also increase the color temperature. So I'm bringing detail back into that area. Okay. Now, as far as the sky is concerned, I can also say, well, I'd like the sky in the top of the sky to be a little bit darker. So I want to do a linear gradient. I'll bring the linear gradient down. And I'm going to reduce the exposure slightly, so I'm darkening the sky. This is just like a linear crowd, if you like. So it's just darkening the sky a little bit. Let's just pull it down a bit. Okay. So there's quite a few masks here. There's the sky, the original sky. There's a mask on the trees, the mask on the water. Don't forget we've changed the exposure in this area, and also we've got a linear gradient in the top. Now, the next thing I'd do is I'd start to think about, well, what sort of shape do I want the image? Now, at the moment, I'm quite interested in doing 16:9 format. So if here, these are all the different ratios, if you like, and I'm quite, I either do square crops. I was doing some today actually with square crops. 16:9 is quite a nice crop for landscape. I feel that I want to keep a little bit of this land in because it gives some base to the actual to the image. So I want to really keep that. So let's go with a 16:9 crop. Take it a bit. So what I'll do now is go back into the filters again. And I'm going to do a linear gradient. So create new mask.
Can you undo that crop? Yeah. Go back.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, I'll show you. I'll do that for you if you like. If we go back into here, I can make this crop. If I wanted to, if I click this here, it actually takes the little lock off, and I can make the crop any size I want. All I'm doing here is actually using one of the actual parameters. So let's say, for instance, I wanted a square crop, which is quite a favourite. So effectively, you can crop to whatever size you want. So I'll go 16:9 because, as I say, it seems to fit the bill quite nicely with this image. Okay, and as I say, I want to keep a little bit of the land in. So I'll go back now to filters or masks, and I want to do a linear gradient from the bottom. Reduce the exposure. So it's giving that ground, it's giving the image a bit of grounding, really. Okay. Right, so when we got to this stage, it's a case of, well, how can I improve on the image as it stands at the moment? Now, I know that there's some smoke coming out of one of those chimneys on the right-hand side, being covered by the mask. So let's see what we can do with that. So if I go on a mask here and do a linear gradient, sorry, a radial gradient. Sorry. How do we get this? Whereabouts? Oh,
just go.
all right, okay. Not that one. This one. Oh, there you go. So this smoke here, I mean, what you can do, you can really go to town on these. So if you go do this, put that over your smoke, exposure, give it a little bit of exposure. See, what it's done there really is put a bit of highlight in the smoke. So you can really play about with these. I mean, to be honest, if I'm doing one of these, it might take me 3/4 of an hour. I might go away and have a brew or something and come back to it and see whether I can do anything else. What I did do with this, something that is probably worth looking at, which we've not done. Let's just increase it. Slightly different than this. There's a bit of mist around this chimney, so there's no clarity in there. So what you could do here, you could say, well, we'll do a new mask for the chimney, and we'll do a brush. So if we paint over here now, slightly, my brush is slightly different. It's actually what you could do now, you could say, well, let's just increase exposure a little bit. else can we do? We could probably put a bit of clarity in it. Bit of texture. And then I think really what we're saying really is that you could probably argue that you know, is quite a big change in terms of what, that's how it looked to me when I was there, because there was a lot of colour in the actual trees, but it's certainly a big change to the actual original raw file. So that's the process I tend to take when I'm looking at landscapes. The interesting thing is that when you think about it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 masks actually operating on this image. So there's no way that you can afford to put an image into competition and just shoot it straight out of camera, particularly in RAW, because it's there's lots of information there that you can actually use to your advantage. So that's what I'd do now. Then I'd go back into library.
Ken, before you do, can I ask, when you do your blacks and your whites,
Yeah.
you visit shadows and highlights? Is that something?
No, to be honest, I don't. I just look at the if we go into this.
Give you calibration.
No, I don't. To be honest, all this is just done by eye. To be honest, let's just have a.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, please.
You know, when you did the white and you slid it and everything was black and blue,
Yes.
what did you press to make that happen?
Well, it's actually on a Mac. It's option.
It's up these shifts.
Oh,
No.
Well, hang on a minute. Let me just go into develop. Let me just have a look at this. So we're in develop now. So
auto sets you.
there you go,
Them,
look.
doesn't it?
Yeah, auto sets.
Sets you. I was asking about highlights.
Yeah, well, it does.
What is it when it's not a Mac?
To be honest.
Yeah.
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 So on my machine anyway, I'm sure there's different keystrokes, but on this Mac, if I press Option, I can control the whites. See, so those are just those blues there in there. Those that actually print now as just about white on a printed sheet. These black.
Does anyone know what it is if it's not a Mac?
Alt is it?
Alt.
Alt.
Okay, thanks.
And as far as the blacks are concerned, see, I've got about 5-10% there. It's not, you know what I mean? So those are your blacks. As far as the shadows are concerned, sometimes just open the shadows a little bit. But if you monitor set, what you get on there is what you're going to get on your prints. Okay. Yeah. To be honest, all my the lenses, I'm using Fuji lenses. Where are we now? Lens correction, yeah. They're all ticked. See, it's a Fuji film. It's shot on an 18mm 1.4, and the profile's a camera setting. So those are already built in, if you like. So I don't need to worry about those. They automatically drop in. I mean, to be honest, once you've got your camera set up for this, it's like the other one is calibration. I don't play about with these because they're all set up for Fuji.
If you've got anything with watering on a blue sky, I find if you start on calibration, just move the blue slide.
Yeah.
To the right on the cube.
Yeah.
And then start from that.
Yeah.
Actually start from there and then start the edit.
Yeah.
You'll be totally different again.
Yeah. Well, the thing is because I'm using a Fuji system, all those are all baked in, if you like.
Yeah.
So I don't need to bother with that. But you're quite right. I mean, it's, you know.
I think the interesting thing is we all do it different ways. And
Yeah.
it's great to see.
Yeah.
Great to see if somebody does something. You know, I mean.
Well, it depends a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dave, do you not have it set in solo mode? You know, if you monitors on the side. You don't have it set in solo mode, do you? You can have all your right hand side columns open at once.
Yeah, well, it's very confusing that. To be honest, that's how I've got mine set up. Yeah, because you've got all the different parameters down there. I mean, we've not even touched on things like, I'm going to look at transformation transform on the next image. But things like detail, that denoise is fantastic. If you're doing 3,200, it's brilliant. I use it all the time, you know. But if it's just, I mean, I did some on Sunday at a fete. Well, it was the Dr. Kershaw's, the Christmas fair, and I was shooting there at about, what was it, 1200 ISO. And what I did, I put the lumens to about here, and that did for everything. But if it's 3,500, I give it a go with the denoise. But the problem is, on the basis that each one takes you probably about, what, a minute. And if you've got like 200 images to do, it's a bit of a pain, really. So, yeah.
That with a descriptive.
Yeah. So,
You don't set that up on import.
you could do, yeah. I don't do anything like that, to be honest. There's things, I mean, there's lots of stuff. There's like your tone curve we can look at. We've looked at the color mixer. Color grading, a lot of people on the shadows make the shadows a little bit blue and the highlights that warm the shadows up. You can do that in here. We've talked about detail. I don't do any detail work on, it's normally defaults at 40. The amount of sharpening is about 40. I don't do any sharpening at this stage, particularly on prime lenses. You don't need to do it. Lens correction, which talked about. I'm going to look at transform in a minute. Lens blur, I've not had much success with that. I don't bother with that. Effects, calibration. So those are all your different parameters. There's various things here, like you've got, you know, removal tools and this type of thing, get rid of red eye. But I don't get involved in any of that. So can I just throw this other image up, David? Can we export this one? Is this?
Yeah. To the desktop.
Yeah.
Or to the file. It'll go straight to the desktop.
Oh, good. So if I go into Photoshop next time, I'll be able to pick it up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'll export that one. You can click over into Photoshop, yeah, but and then bring it back into Lightroom. But I just want to look at it separately in Photoshop. So if it's this top one, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. This one was taken yesterday in Manchester. Let me just see if I can just. And
how do you do that, Ken?
Well, it's command and then sorry. Start again.
Command
and then you plus or minus.
Oh, plus or minus, right.
Okay. The reason I put this one up is there's two reasons. Is that we've not touched on black and white, which I use this for black and white conversion rather than a Photoshop. And the other one is transpose, which you need to be aware of if you're transform, sorry. You need to be aware of if you're putting stuff in for competitions, because there's a lot of stuff goes through here that's, you know, they've got keystoning in, and a judge will pick on it straight away. First thing you look at, if you've got keystoning in the image, unless it really, you can't do anything about it or you want it to be like that, they'll pick up on it. So the way I get rid of, keystoning, start again, is to use the transform button in the develop mode. Now you can, if you want, click on auto, and it'll do quite a good job actually. But I always use guided. So you click on guided, and then there's a pointer here. So that drain pipe there, for instance, so long as I get a line that's running down that, start again. Drain pipe, says he. That's it. And then another line going through another vertical. You can see why I've picked this image. There we go. And it immediately pops everything into position, square, in terms of the verticals. So it's important you do that if you're putting in stuff in compositions, in competitions. What I do with this, what I did with an image I used today, I did a square crop, something like that. Get rid of that drain pipe there that's running down, and that's all about. Obviously, you can do things like you can put a mask in there. You can reduce the exposure. I've not even played about with the auto. Press the auto. You can increase the interesting. There's this panel here, which is quite interesting. If you click on this icon here, you get all the different thumbnails for black and white, different types. These are Adobe files. On mine, I've got all the Fuji film simulations on as well. You know, Velvia, Provia, Acros, all those different types of, the films that they used to use in the film days. But I also use this for black and white because it gives you a good idea of what the image is going to look like in black and white. So black and white, number 6, I always tend to use number 5 actually, but number 6, those sort of different profiles, you just decide what you want to use, and it gives you a good starting point really to start doing something. We'll use that one. To start something with the black and white. So make use of those thumbnails on the right-hand side there. They've got fancy colours as well, vintage look and all sorts of different things. Well, I particularly like them because on the Fuji camera, the film profiles that are actually in the camera under JPEG are replicated through RAW on this system. So all your film profiles, like your classic Chrome, Provia, Velvia, are all actually in the system if you use the Fuji system. I'm sure it's the same in Nikon, but I'm not familiar with the digital part. So that's the. I'm not going to go through all the different parameters on this now in terms of the adjustments that we've done with the coloured one. Well, that's basically the conversion to black and white, and also using transform as a means of getting the image straight. So with this one, I'll go back into library and export, and that goes back. That's exported now, providing I've got the parameters set as a JPEG. It started off as a raw image, and now it's finished up as a JPEG on the desktop, I think. Is it?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
That's it. Okay. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what I do in Lightroom. Okay. Well, I mean, to be honest, some of my images have got like 15 masks on. If I'm doing day for night, I might have 20 masks on, and it doesn't slow the system down. You can have as many masks as you want.
Lightroom's made masks very easy, isn't it?
It has, yeah.
Photoshop. I tend to get lost on it.
I mean, you can do it in Photoshop. You just have to select, but it's a pain.
Yeah,
I think it's because of photography, region, you could only do masks and stuff like that in Photoshop. So you've had to take it from
Yes.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's only recently over the last sort of 12, 18 months that they've started doing masks and layers.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing.
Yeah.
In Lightroom, it's called a mask, and in Photoshop, it's a layer.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got quite a powerful computer, you can have Photoshop and Lightroom running side by side and send this image from Lightroom straight into Photoshop.
You can do. You
Come on, this.
You will do.
Yeah, swap the sky and then bring it back again and start playing about with it again.
You can just go to photo. Go to photo on the menu at the top.
Can I actually do that other one then? Yeah, the ocean.
Yeah.
Just can you take that to Photoshop?
Right.
Well, you tell me how to do it. 'Cause the reason I don't do this is my computer's not very fast.
Oh.
So if I try and put Lightroom in Photoshop, it just falls over.
This one's a beast. You can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, okay.
Go to Photoshop, photo.
Whereabouts are you looking now?
Right up.
So, along there,
Well,
One person tell it, right?
yeah, photo, go along the line there to photo.
Oh, photo, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Editing,
Editing.
Editing, right.
yeah.
Oh, and then
Photoshop.
in Photoshop, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Great. Well, the trouble is I can't do that because at what happens at this point, my machine goes bang.
Well, you might have looked at pictures, but your PC's rubbish.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, it is 8 years old, so I mean,
There you go.
excellent, good. Good. Smashing. So,
Ken, if you were doing it in code,
yeah,
and then going to Photoshop,
yeah.
do you then have to open it as a JPEG?
Well, what it does when it's in this situation, when it's in Lightroom, it's a raw file, and then as soon as you export it,
Yeah.
it sends it to wherever you want it to go in as a JPEG. So I send it back to the same file as a JPEG. Then I shut Photoshop down, Lightroom down, and I open the Photoshop, and then I pick it up in Photoshop.
A JPEG.
This-
No, that's
No.
straight from Lightroom.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's retained.
Yeah.
That should be a single line.
Yeah.
Photoshop. So again, surely you should save it as PNG form. And
Yes.
then you get all the
That's what it's done.
Well, it does, but I don't need to do.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that because all I do in Photoshop is get little bits, take little bits and pieces out.
Lines around, though.
Yeah, I put my light around around. That's right.
So I think on that, if you're doing any major editing in Photoshop after Lightroom, which
You do it as a TIFF or a
you do it as a
DAG,
TIFF,
absolutely,
TIFF.
without question.
Set up prints or whatever, just do it as a JPEG.
You see, all I do in Photoshop is put my lines around, or put it on a piece of white paper and put some text on because I do prints.
Yeah.
But I don't mess about with the actual image in Photoshop. Unless I'm doing things like dropping stuff in, like, if you wanted to drop an image in, well, composites. I do composites in Photoshop, and I'm using JPEGs then because I'm quite happy with the actual file before I start doing anything with it.
Goldfish in the middle of the link.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Or if I'm using AI.
I tell you what, speedboats, water skiers, you know.
Yeah,
Lightroom.
Yep.
If you take your photos in JPEG,
yeah,
not in RAW,
yeah,
you can still do.
absolutely, yeah. But you're limited.
It's limited.
You see, there's no depth in the actual pixels because with JPEG, you're compressing the image. Whereas if you're working in RAWs, you've got all that information in the file without, before you start.
I think it's just compressed as a JPEG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the info, all the different aspects of that, so the blacks, the whites, yada, yada, yada. The camera, when it compresses it, will do what it think is a right format. So you can be limited. You can still lighten it down, expose it, but you haven't got the same tools as you have with a raw file or a TIFF file.
So all I want to do now really is to go into Photoshop and just show you how I put the lines around, and then and just tittle about with any bits and pieces that want changing.
Could you show us how to put your text in?
Yeah, I will do that. That'll do that. So if I come out of this now,
Where are you going?
I want to get rid of Lightroom and I want to just use those 2 JPEG images in Photoshop. Because
Right, so just if you just reduce the
like this Lightroom here, I can actually close Lightroom down, can't I?
yeah,
Quit Lightroom,
yeah.
and it wants to back up. Skip this time. Yeah.
Right.
Now this is Photoshop now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a file I sent over, isn't it? So I want to kill this one.
We'll kill that.
Go. Don't save. Okay. So what I want to do now is to open the file that I had, wherever it is. Here it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the image, if you like, we've manipulated the raw file in Lightroom and now exported the JPEG after manipulation onto the desktop. This is now a JPEG file in Photoshop. Now, what I tend to do, you don't ever see these because I just do this myself. It's a bit of a project I've had running now for the last 3 years. Any image that I particularly like, I print off on a 16x12 sheet of paper, stick them in a portfolio box, and I've got a box for each year I've been doing this, and I've got probably about 50 images that I particularly like that I've kept, and nobody else ever sees them particularly. I don't put them in. We don't do any competitions now with prints in this club at the moment. But I've still got a pile of prints that I do. This one I'll probably print up at some stage. So as far as the image is concerned, if you look at image size in inches, I tend to work in inches. I'm an old-fashioned. It's 22 inches wide. Make it 300 dpi. 22 inches wide. I make that 16 inches. No, I don't. Make it 12 inches. Yeah, because it's going on the 16x12 sheet of paper.
Height is now 6, not sure the width is 16.
Just see what he does.
No, it's 12. The width is 12, and the sheet of paper is 16x12.
12.
Yeah.
It's the width of 12.
Yeah, but that's the image. I'm talking the sheet of paper that you print in is 16x12. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's 4 inches less. It's 2 inches on each side, effectively. Okay. So what I do, I make it 12 inches wide by 6. It's 16 by 9. It makes 6.75 inches high, 300 dpi, and that's it. So that's my image. What I want to do now is get this in the. What I tend to do now is put a rim round it, a black rim round it. So I go image, canvas size, and I'm into millimeters now. So I'm going millimeter. It's 304 millimeters wide. So it's 305. Yeah, that's a 5. 171. So I make that 172. Come on. Typical. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, isn't it? 172. There you go. And I want a black rim, so I'll go black. You won't see this very well, but there's a black rim round there now of a millimeter. Then I go back again, image, canvas size. I'm now into centimeters. It's in my head, this. So it's 31. I want a centimeter of 31.58. So it's 31.58. Yeah. 31.58 in the dark. This is 1825, 18.25. So this is 18.25 centimeters. I want this white. And I've got a white frame around it. Then I go image, canvas size. Again, I'm going back into millimeters. I want 316.81. 316.81 and 183.54. 183.54. And I'm going to go in grey for this one. So I'll go grey. And then I want to go in 2 centimeters this time. So it's 33.68, 33.68. This one is 20.36. 20.36. And I want this to be white. Right. So what I've got now is the original image with a black rim around it, centimetre white, a millimetre of grey and 2 centimetres of white. Now I'm going to drop that onto a sheet of paper that's 16 by 12. So if I go now to File, New, we want inches, width 16 inches, height 16 by 12, 300 dpi, and it says, and it wants it in white. So I'll go create, and that's my piece of paper. So all I need to do now is grab the original image and put all. So I'll put a marching ants around the actual image. You can see them. Command all A, and then Command C, copy. And I come over onto the white sheet of paper and I go Command V. And there it is into the actual print. So if I want to move this image, I can move this up and down. The interesting thing, there's a magenta line there to show me that I've got the image right in the center of the paper. And I just eyeball it in, to be honest. So it's probably somewhere like that. Bear in mind, I've got the title to go in here. So I now go to T, which is the text, horizontal, put the text in. I'm going to call this, what's it called? Gibson, isn't it? Gibson Mill. Gibson Mill. Now, the problem is, obviously, the type size is too big, so we come down to about 36 point.
Need to select text.
Yeah, that's how I want it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Sorry. There we go. Let's try 36. The actual typeface, I think I use, you can use any of these really. It's your own taste, to be honest, whatever you fancy. I think I use just trying to look for the one I use. Let's try that one.
Yeah.
That'll do. Center. So there's your magenta line again, and that's it really. So that's more or less what I do. I mean, I spend a lot more time playing about with the text and everything. I'll probably put Gibson Mill, Hardcastle Crags in a smaller typeface underneath it, something like that. And all you do with that, you just put text again, and you put your text under there. Interestingly, on your layers, you've got Gibson Mill text. You've got the layer of the actual image itself on the background. So before you do anything else, you've got to flatten it. So you go layers, flatten image, and then what I do then, I'll print that onto a sheet of 16 by 12, stick it in my portfolio box, and move on to the next one. Because it's in layers, the text is on a layer of its own. Sorry,
It's basically 3 images.
there's 3 images, yeah. It will, yeah.
But when you save it on your computer there, and you're taking up a lot of space, so it eats through your memory, so by flattening it, you reduce the size of the image.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a
Yeah. So
suppose you had loads of adjustments. If you had loads of adjustments and you flatten them, you could never go back.
no, that's right. Absolutely. It's a problem that actually, because sometimes I've got it spelt wrong or something. I've got to start again. So it's a bit of a pain, but I flatten it. And to be honest, I don't do my own printing because I do 2 or 3 a month and it's not worth me having a print. So I send it to DS Colour Labs.
So
And-
you always send it off, you don't bother printing?
No, I don't print myself because I don't do enough to warrant it really, and it's so expensive. So I just send it off I wait till I've got about 5 or 6 images and I fire it off to DS Colour Labs. I've got my computers set up, calibrated to their system. So what I can see on my screen, I get on the print.
Yeah.
And I've got a stack of them now of these things. And
What do you do with them?
I don't know
How do you
anything.
set it up?
I stick them in a box in
So
a
forget about
box. I've got a box, a portfolio box that costs about 20 quid. You know, it's a nice box with the name, the year on,
Yeah.
and there's about 50 images.
Do you mount them or do you just?
No, I just leave them as they are. And it's just a record of what I'm doing really. And I can say, I can look back 4 years, or 3 years actually, and look what I was doing in January,
Yeah.
you know, and I can say, have I improved since then? And that's how you know, I know it's a bit stupid, but that's what I do. Yeah. I'll bring it in sometime on one of the boxes. You can have a look at them. But it's mainly landscape I do. And then obviously at one time we used to do prints here. I used to do 16 by 12 prints and mount them up on a 400 by 500 mat.
Yeah.
And bring them in, but we don't seem to do that now, so I don't mess about with that. But I still like prints, and that's what I do, you know.
If remind everybody that we are doing an exhibition next year at the Coach House. So
Oh,
we
Kenneth.
need them.
Yeah, so you've got the box. Yeah. Oh, you can. Okay.
I think the important thing as well is that border, isn't it? We got in Potty, we got 1 or 2 comments where the border wasn't it.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting
Yeah.
to
Black line.
Yeah.
well, it was a white line.
Yeah, you need the white line on the box.
Yeah.
You see, the reason I put that grey border around is because if I was doing it properly on a card, I'd cut them out and put the print behind it, and that grey would be like the cut of the cutout. But I mean, if you're just doing it on a print, I just stick the grey border around it. Yeah. But sometimes I stick it on Facebook like that, you know, seeing it. So if you're interested, I'll bring my box in. I'll bring my last box in and you can go through and see what you think. But it gives you an idea. You know, some people, I've got a mate that's at the RPS and he does a book. He waits till he gets 50 images and he makes a book up through Blurb. And it's their, you know, A4 books and you can go through all his images and it's fantastic, really. It's good.
That is, I've done that.
Yeah.
It is worth doing a book.
Yeah, because if you do one for the year, you know, this is my photography for 2021, and you've got them all there. You know, it's fantastic.
So what would a book cost?
I did one for a boxing group. It was about 50 quid.
Yeah.
It's not bad,
And
is
I
it?
sold loads.
Oh. Oh.
If you can do your
But the thing is,
photographs in a book, it's worth 50.
my argument when I pop my clogs, I've got 2 children. They'll get a skip and they'll throw my hard drive, my computer in. But if I've got a portfolio box with all my images in, they're not going to chuck them away.
It's funny you should say. It's funny you should say that. I've got the camera.
Yeah.
that Nikon kit I've got, the gent who that belonged to, he's got a pile that high of mounted prints, and his wife takes them in. Unfortunately, she's got dementia. She takes 2 a week into him, and all he does is sit there tearing them up. And I said, well, why do you let him do that? She said, well, at least he's getting pleasure out of his photos, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think the book is the best idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you can get it on the laptop, called Free Books.
Yeah, they do.
So they're doing as well.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of them.
Yeah.
CWE I've used and that.
Your phone pictures come out really well.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
But the point is that the message to get across really is that you spend a lot of time taking the photographs.
Yeah.
Make sure you print them up and you can see them, because they're no good on a hard drive. They're no good to anybody, you know. So that's why I do it really. I stick them in a portfolio box and they're there, and I look at them from time to time.
Yeah.
But it's better that than having them stuck on a hard drive, because you'll never look at them on a hard drive.